My recipe is on page 3, and it's the sweet red pepper and crab soup or chowder. And you will all get to know, if the more you come here, I do easy. I am not one to slave away in the kitchen. I don't mind being in the kitchen, but I want to make it as easy as possible. So I have mine here. I put it together last night and finished it up this morning. So I did not bring anything. I'm just going to go through it with you, walk you through it, answer any questions you have. And I've mentioned this before. I like to dice things up. For me, it's one of those soothing things. I actually see the end result. I don't mind doing it. So I'm one of those crazy people. It's not a big deal. But this one, that took the most time for me. I tripled my recipe just because of the group today. So it's what you have here is just a regular recipe for, I made this on Monday. We had friends over for New Year's Day, college football. So I did a single batch. It fed 4 people and had enough extra. I sent home a little with them, and we had supper again one night. So it was a perfect amount. But this is tripled for today. But a normal batch, it says dicing up a 1/4 cup of celery, 1/4 cup of carrots. I'll be honest, I don't measure because you can never have too many vegetables. It is, if you like one and not so much the other, and you want to put one, more in, or you're like, oh, I'm out of those, I'll just put in whatever, go for it. I just cut up till I'm tired of dicing. I do put in a red pepper, so there are 3 red peppers in this one because I did triple it. A bunch of the green onions, same thing. There are 3 bunches for this one just because, and the bunches vary in size, but I cut off the ends, both ends, and then just chopped them up, bite-sized pieces. And I did do 2 potatoes for each batch, so there are 6 potatoes in this one. And I just diced them. And you can leave the peels on if you want. I peeled them, diced them all up, put all the vegetables in the pot, and you just cover enough water to boil them down so they're soft. Some of them might be there might be a little crunch to them. They're not all mush, but they are definitely cooked down. Then imitation crab legs or pieces of crab, it's just cutting it up into bite-sized pieces. Again, do I measure? I know Spencer's probably over there cringing as I talk because he measures everything precisely. But I'm like, that looks good. 2 cans of the condensed cream of potato soup. If you can't find cream of potato, because like Walmart did not have it, so you can do cream of celery, you can do cream of mushrooms because it's the vegetables. That works. That's not a problem. And then you do need an 8-ounce thing of cream cheese with the chives. Again, just if you can't find it, you could use regular cream cheese. It's just going, the chives add with it. A 1/2 stick of butter, and then it says 2 cups, half and half. I do start out with that, and then I will add more half and half if it becomes too thick as it cooks, so to thin it down. I have not used, if you had regular milk, I've always just used half and half. When I know I'm going to make this one, I just make the effort to buy the half and half, and it's easy to do. And then it's seriously, after I've drained my vegetables and I've added all that in, it's just cooking it through. And it's that simple. My husband likes to add pepper to it just to give it as he's eating that. He won't even add crackers. But it's really a simple soup. It's a filling. I made it with a cheesy bread on Monday, for people. And we had appetizers and that called it good, and everybody was happy. So that is mine. Any questions? Lori?
What kind of potatoes do you use?
I just used the russet potatoes. And when I did this one today with the 6, I looked for bigger ones. But then my mom got me a new chopper for Christmas, so I used that, which it was weird because, like I said, I'm one who likes to just sit there and chop with my knife, but it worked out perfectly, so it was a good thing.
Does it freeze well?
We've never had enough. So I'll be honest, I do not know. I don't. It will probably separate a little bit just with some of the half and half, but I would think you could, doctor it up once you get it out of the freezer. But I've honestly never done it because it goes.
Freezing changes the texture of cream
Yes, that is true. Cream cheese. So it's just eat it all. I know, and I was talking. Oh, Tina and I were talking. It's hard, like soup down here. Like I'm from Michigan, so we made soup all the time because winter lasts forever in Michigan, and it's different down here. And soup is one of those hard things because it does make a lot, and so it's that fine line. Because I love soup, but it's like, well, who wants to eat soup when it's 80 degrees outside, 90 degrees outside? You don't want to do that. So the weather gods blessed us today. It said, oh, you guys are doing soup? We're going to give you weather for a soup. That's what I'm going to go with. Yes? This one is very creamy. Yep. So it and if you find that you can play with it. This has just been a tried and true recipe. I had a friend give it to me years ago, and it's been a favorite, and it just works out really simple. So you can add to it if you find different consistencies that you like. If you want to add another thing of cream, cream of mushroom soup or whatever.
Hi, my name is Willard, for those of you who are new. So today we're going to be talking about Spanish lentil soup on page 2 of your booklet. So I'm a big fan of dried beans. I keep them in the pantry. It's pretty much what got me started on cooking to begin with. The only problem I have with dried beans is it takes a lot of prep time to get them to rehydrate so you can actually cook with them. So a good alternative is lentils. Lentils are a nice dried bean, very healthy. It's got a lot of protein, a lot of fiber, stuff that you actually need and want in your body. And the good news is they're small enough, they don't require any pre-soaking or pre-boiling if you want to start cooking with them. So that's what I did today. Our recipe today is Spanish lentil soup. There's a lot of variations of this, especially around the Mediterranean and South America. But we're going with the Spanish version of it. And the thing that makes it a Spanish lentil soup is the inclusion of chorizo. Chorizo? Anybody from? Chorizo. Thank you. I've read the word many times and never heard it pronounced. So it is a sausage, and I will tell you, this is not healthy. It's sausage, it's got a lot of fat in it. The good news is, because we're just using a small amount in the soup, we're getting less than half a serving with a large bowl of soup. So the soup itself is a healthy alternative, even though you're including some unhealthy elements in it. The first thing you want to do is to prep your vegetables. With a lot of soups, it's going to include the basic vegetables. Carrots are a common one. Potatoes are a common one. Onions are very common. A lot of the soups I've ever made, the two most common ingredients are going to be onions and garlic. So onions because they're very flavorful, and garlic because it's very flavorful. So you're going to prep your vegetables. Most of the recipes that I've looked at for the lentil soups also include celery. I enjoy celery sometimes, but I don't like it in my soup for some reason, so I did not include it. But if you want to put it in yours, go ahead. So you're going to prep the vegetables. Then you're going to start heating up your oil, and you're actually going to saute your sausage. Remember, we're only using a little bit of sausage for a large volume of soup. So one of the things we want to do is try to enhance the flavor of the sausage itself so that we can taste the sausage but not get all that fat. So if you saute it, you're going to bring out the flavor by frying the outside edges of your sliced pieces of sausage, and you're also going to render some of that fat out of the sausage, and that is going to go into your vegetables when you saute them too. So you're actually distributing the flavor of the sausage throughout the entire soup so that you don't just taste the sausage when you eat an actual piece of sausage. So you'll saute your sausage, then you'll saute all of your vegetables, then you'll add your seasonings. The most common seasoning, especially for the Spanish one, is going to be paprika. Most of the Spanish-style lentil soups call for smoked sweet paprika. Here in the U.S., unless you're going to a specialty store, you're probably going to have a hard time actually finding smoked sweet Spanish paprika. So the best we can come up with is just most of the normal paprikas. You see anybody speak Spanish? Because I got smoked ahumada. And anybody know that word? Yes. Yep. So it is smoked paprika, so it's not your traditional paprika. It is smoked, so it has that Spanish process applied to it. It's just not the sweet version of it. There are some specialty stores here in town, but I've never visited one. I think they're both on Tammy Amy, but I don't know what their stock is like. So if you're just a Walmart shopper like I am, just pick up the smoked one and you'll be good. You're going to add your spices, which is, in this case is mostly just going to be your paprika. And some of the recipes call for putting in some canned tomatoes and then kind of sauteing that down, simmering it down until it starts to make a paste. I just jump straight to the paste. I use tomato paste in a lot of the soups that I make. You've got two options. If you're using a lot of tomato paste on a regular basis, the can is your best bet. You can get a lot of tomato paste in a can for very little money. So the problem is, if you're only grabbing 2 tablespoons out of this, then you have to seal this really well and put it back in your fridge for the next time you want it. Another option, if you're a person who only uses it occasionally, they have these tubes of tomato paste. So you can squeeze out a teaspoon, couple of tablespoons at a time, put it back in the fridge, and it's ready for the next time you need it. You don't have to worry about it going all crusty if you just opened up a can and left that sitting in the refrigerator. So, yes, yep, I got this from Walmart. So. Oh, you can freeze the tomato paste, and I'll remember that. Because this is a lot more cost effective than this is. So by freezing this, I might try that trick and see if I can get more out of it. You're going to add your flavorings, which is going to be your paprika and your tomato paste. Mix that in, and then you just throw in the rest of your bulk goods. You throw in the rest of your beans, you throw in the potatoes, and you pour in your broth. I typically like to use either vegetable or chicken broth, depending on what I'm cooking. In this particular case, I just went with the vegetable broth. You could make an entirely vegetarian version of this if you just left out the sausage. So the sausage is the only thing in here that's not vegetarian. So if you're a vegetarian person, you can get most of the flavor, just not the nice sausage flavor that comes with it. So, and that's basically it. You just heat it up, bring it up to a boil, and then turn it down to a low simmer and let it cook for the next 20, 25 minutes until the beans and the vegetables start to soften up. So I will typically make a large batch for myself. I'll eat some that night. I'll throw in some more in a bowl so I can have it the next night, but I don't want to eat it 4 nights in a row. So I'll take the other half and throw that in the freezer. You asked about freezing. I have found with the lentils and the other beans, if you freeze it and thaw it out, it will soften up a lot more than it does when it's fresh out of the pot. Yep. No, with the lentils, you don't have to soak them. Nope. So, but if I know I'm going to freeze it, sometimes I'll take half of my soup out before it's finished cooking and set that aside, let it cool down. It will slowly cook as it's cooling to begin with. Then when I freeze it and reheat it, it doesn't lose as much texture as if it were fully cooked when I put it back in the freezer. So just a helpful hint, if you decide that making a large batch of soup is too much for you to eat at one time and you want to freeze it, if you put it in the freezer before it's finished cooking, and then when you reheat it, it will actually finish cooking then, and it won't just turn into a big bowl of mush. So, all right, any questions about cooking that? Yep. Oh, you can get this at Walmart. There's a few brands. There's the Goya brand. There's also the Iberia brand. Cost-effective wise, Iberia brand is probably cheaper, but you get 4 instead of 2. And there's a third option over in the freezer section, the refrigerated section. They have also chorizo that is not as fully cured, so it's not shelf stable, so it has to be refrigerated. But that's an even cheaper option if you want to go with that route. I'm not sure if the flavor is as intense in that because it's not as fully cured, smoke cured as the actual cured stuff is. Yeah, when I started making this dish, I did not go with this variation of it. I just kind of threw together my own variation, which is American sausage, lentils, and rice. And I just went with the hot and spicy version of the American sausage. But pretty much any meat combination, typically sausage because it has a lot of fat content and a little bit more flavor, any meat combination will work with this.
Then it wouldn't be called Spanish lentil.
No. And like I said, the Italians have their own version, Italian lentil soup. They'll use Italian sausage in theirs. And because a lot of Spanish colonists moved down to South America, there's a lot of variations down in Latin America that use their own local versions of sausage in place of the Spanish chorizo.
Hi everyone, I'm Angie, and today I have 2 different soups to share with you today. So the first one we're going to go over is the loaded baked potato soup on page 7 of your book. This is one of our family favorites. We've done the fully loaded version, and we've done the light versions depending on what time of year for New Year's resolution, for counting our calories, or if we just want to indulge and have a treat. So it's very flexible to whatever you need and whatever you like. So for this recipe, you can either do it in a crock pot or you can do it on the stove. For this one, I actually did 5 times the normal recipe just for a crowd. So I have 2 crock pots full for this. I did all of my cooking in the gigantic pot down at the end of our island here, and then just transferred that into smaller containers into the crock pots. So for this, I just chopped up all my vegetables. I left the skins on because I like a little more rusticness to my potato soup. You can always peel them if you like, whatever you prefer. Chopped up the celery, carrots. We like to add bacon to this. Loaded baked potato soup, you gotta have bacon, right? But if you prefer not to put the bacon in, you can certainly leave that out. That's up to you, or if you have a special kind that you like. I just toasted it a little bit in the oven to kind of give it a little bit of crispness, but still kind of wimpy, so that it gives it a little more texture in the soup. So I just put everything together except for the cheese and the milk. Now with the milk, the recipe says the evaporated milk, or you can use whole milk. You can use heavy cream like we're using today. So we're going fully loaded today. Or you can use half and half. Just depends on what you want it to be. So I've done just regular milk, like skim milk, or I've done the fully loaded like today with the half and half. Or heavy cream, whatever you like. And then when my soup is getting ready to be served, if it needs a little thickening up, I take my immersion blender, and you can either give it a couple of rounds to kind of thicken it up so you have bigger pieces, smaller pieces of your potato, or you can add a couple of tablespoons of potato flakes. And that is my secret for soups and for sauces and for gravies, is adding a little bit of your potato flakes and thickening it up instead of doing the roux. I can never get that to work for some reason. It never works for me. But the potato flakes was like a light bulb moment where I'm like, why didn't I ever think about this before? So it makes it super easy to thicken your sauces and soups and that. And I just put in my milk and or evaporated milk, and do that before I serve. Stir in your favorite cheese. I just put in cheddar cheese in this, but you can mix that out depending on what your preferences or tastes are, and serve that up goes great with cheddar biscuits or garlic bread or whatever you like. Any questions about the potato soup?
Is it only, can you do it in a regular pot? In a slow cooker?
Nope, you can do it in a regular pot. Yep. Just for this purposes, to keep it warm, I prepared everything last night in the big pot, and then I separated that into smaller containers, and then we're just rewarming and then finishing in the crock pot just to keep it warm. Yeah, and it reheats very, very well. Yes?
So whatever milk you use, will that make the soup thicker or not thicker? Or not?
It depends on the milk that you use. If you use a thicker, like the heavy cream, obviously it's going to have a thicker, creamier kind of consistency to it. If you use like skim milk, whole milk, it's thinner, so it's obviously going to thin out your soup a little bit. So potato flakes, yep, your regular, ordinary potato flakes.
What do they look like? Do you have a box?
Yeah. I don't have a box, but I have a container. Yep. Just your instant mashed potatoes. You can get them in a box. You can get the store brand. I don't see a difference in using the name brand or store brand, but I just add a teaspoon or a tablespoon at a time, mix it in, because it takes a couple of minutes to thicken, and you don't want to over thicken it. If you do, with this type of soup, you can just add a little more milk or a little butter or whatever you like. So this is a chicken and wild rice soup recipe. I did this in the Instapot.
What page is it on, please?
It's the separate little half page. It's going to be right up here on the end of the island. So for this purposes, I actually tripled the recipe just to make sure we all have enough to try. So this actually is super, super easy. Just your wild rice blend. And I got this at Walmart. Super easy. It's not that expensive. 6 cups of water. Now for the Mirepoix seasoning blend, I don't know if you're familiar with Mirepoix. Fancy word. Is that French word? Yes. So that's a fancy word for a blend of carrots, celery, and there's bell peppers in it, and some brands put a little parsley in it. And I think there's onion. Yeah. Yeah, I believe this one had the onion in it. And it comes already pre-chopped in the little bags in the freezer section. I usually keep some in the freezer. Just, you get a spur of the moment recipe, you need something for dinner, you pull whatever out that you like, and it's always available. So I just put my oil and my Mirepoix blend, my veggies, in the bottom, and I saute it for a few minutes, kind of let it soften up a little bit, and then I turn off the Instapot, and then I add the rest of my ingredients, put it on high. On the soup function on this, I don't know if anybody's familiar with an Instapot. I use the soup, and on high, and I just let her go. And it takes about 35 minutes, which I find for me, for the doneness that I like for my rice, but you might want to adjust that up or down depending on your preference. And once it's done, I'd let the steam out, as you saw probably earlier, and it's ready to serve.
She does soup. I do soup once in a while, but it's not really my thing. So I thought, what else can I do that would complement soup? So I came up with a cheddar biscuit. Oh darn, yeah, I like that. Wow, we actually get applause for that one. That's pretty good. So I'm sure you've all been to the restaurant, right? The place with the lobster? Okay, yeah. They have theirs, and it's like you go and eat 3 baskets of the biscuits, and then the food comes, you go, well, I'll just box it up because I'm not eating it, because I've already ate everything else. So I was trying to think of something simple, because I know a lot of you have been here a while. You're like, oh, great, this is going to be another 4-page recipe, because you know how I like to do that once in a while. You got a couple ways you can do this. You can make it, you can make the dough yourself with flour, baking soda, baking powder, and all that. But again, I was trying to find something that was simple. My grandmother used to use this all the time. So I was in the store and I was like, well, wait a minute, let me see. Flour, baking soda, baking powder. Oh, hold on, let's just use this, right? So let's do that. So this is your base. Now there is actually what they call cheesy garlic biscuits on the back of this box, if you want to follow this. That's their thing. So just a couple of notes. One of the things that they use for the liquid, I believe, is milk. If anybody has ever used baking powder or baking soda, what makes it go better? Buttermilk, right? It's acidic. So if you mix the two together, it's like when I would remember being a wee little one. Remember the volcano projects? Right? Baking soda, vinegar, and that's basically what we're doing. So by using the buttermilk, you're going to get a better rise. So that's one thing I changed out. I believe they called for, it was like some ridiculous thing, like a half a cup of cheese or something. 1 cup of cheese per batch. Oh, hold on, we got to check our biscuits one more time because this one's almost ready to come out. You notice I'm using this thing. You know how much I love my thermometer.
Yes, we do.
All right, we're going to call these 200. question was, what's the temperature? Okay, these are done. So when I checked these like 5 minutes ago, they were brown, but they weren't done on the inside. You guys would have had raw biscuits. I know that's really appetizing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull these other ones. So 1 second. We're going to do a little intermission thing here. And I kind of waited to do these for you guys, so because they're usually best served warm, not, cold. Now I know Willard and maybe Suzanne were talking, and Angie were both talking about healthy. Okay. So to add insult to injury, right, we got to do this. Okay. So while I'm doing this, we'll talk about the recipe a little bit more, and then I'll bake off the rest of these in a little bit. Okay, so your base is the Bisquick, 2 cups. That's pretty simple. I come from sifting and want to measure by weight. The Bisquick, for some reason, they tell you not to sift it. There's other stuff in it, so I tried to do the scoop and sweep method, if you guys are familiar with that. You take a spoon, you put it in the measuring cup, then you take a knife, level it off. Not a big deal. So it hurt me that I didn't do this by weight, but I survived. I used a measuring cup. In case you're curious, I made 13 batches of this, so that's 26 cups we used of Bisquick today. Don't ask about the cheese and the other ingredient I'm going to tell you about in a minute. All right, so while I was kind of messing with this recipe, let me tell you, we got fat off biscuits for a while because it's like, nope, we need to change this, make them again. So the thing with these I found is to get that garlic flavor, I had to add a lot of garlic powder. I don't know why. And what we're using, and I have it here, I can show it to you in a second. I'm using granulated garlic, not garlic powder. Granulated garlic is kind of like the texture of sand, so it's a little coarser. So a lot of recipes on the internet, they're going to tell you to add like a half a teaspoon. I can't tell you how hard I laughed after I tried that. I was like, why even bother? You can't taste nothing. So we ended up adding 2 teaspoons per batch of granulated garlic, and I think it's because of all the other ingredients that's in the Bisquick. It's not just flour, so you have to kind of compete with that, if that makes sense. And then to round it out, we actually like onion in our house, so I got granulated onion, and we added a teaspoon of that. So, now, back to the buttermilk. To keep the biscuits kind of nice and soft, you'll notice there's a tablespoon of oil in there. That's what the oil is for. It's to keep them nice and soft. So obviously if you've got a few left over, they don't turn into hockey pucks. So the oil is going to keep it nice and soft for you. Just like those of you that when we did the rolls, how many were here for Thanksgiving? We did the rolls. People remember the potato rolls, right? There was oil in the potato rolls, same idea. So that's what made them nice and bouncy. Let's see, so after we've made these a couple of times, Angie and I, we looked at each other and she just, we said bacon. Needs bacon. I'm like, all right, so are we gonna cook a whole couple pounds of bacon for this? No. So what we've done this time, to just make your life easy, real bacon pieces. So I put 1/4 cup of this in. Of course, you can adjust the seasonings, the onion powder, garlic powder, to whatever you guys like. If you want to go crazy and put the chives in there, put the chives in there. I didn't bother doing that because I figured by the time you get through the garlic, the butter, the cheese, the bacon, who's going to miss the darn chives, right? So, yeah, so then at the end, I just took, we'll just say some butter. I won't tell you exactly how much I started melting here. It was a sum. And I'm just brushing this while they're hot, and then that's it, they're ready to serve. So you basically want to try and do this. So if you got people coming over to the house, I would try to mix these up towards the end and then just pop them in the oven for about 15 minutes. I don't know if it's because I had 4 trays in there. It took a little longer, so I ended up doing these like closer to 20. I use a thermometer because, again, I don't trust what I can't see. So in this case, a quick bread like this, you want 200 degrees. This will never lie. So you stick it in there, and then plus you know for your oven, how many ever you're doing on your sheet pans, just make a note on the recipe. For you, it might be 15 minutes, and maybe it's 18 minutes, whatever it is. And then you'll be good to go on, you just have that in your recipe for next time. That's what I do. Any other questions?
Where'd you get that thermometer?
You can get them on Amazon, or you can get it on Walmart. This is actually from Thermapen. It's from a company called ThermoWorks. They make commercial instruments to measure stuff with. So this is not exactly a cheap thermometer, but we've had it a long time. And it's an instant read. It's not like some of them where you stick it in there and you gotta wait like 10 or 15 seconds, which doesn't sound like much, but if you got your face in a 500-degree oven, that's a long time. So this will run you about $100. If you want the Amazon jobs, right, $15, that'll get the job done. But this, if you want something that's quick, and plus this lights up at night, so if you're doing something on the barbecue and you can't see what you're doing, it'll light up when you stick it in there. For those of you that were here for the chicken, we had the thing clamped to the side of the oven. That's the in-thermometer, the in-oven version. So that's by the same company. So yeah, it's definitely, to me, a thermometer is definitely worth the investment. Spend whatever you can afford, obviously. Just depends on how much you like to cook and bake. We obviously do that once in a while in our house. So yeah, we try to buy what makes sense, you know. Any other questions? Nope. All right, see, that was easy, right? You guys should be happy I didn't hit you with a 4-page recipe this month. All right, so the question was, what's the difference between the granulated and the powdered version of garlic or onion? Here, let me do this. Because, you know, we're using a lot of garlic and onions, so don't buy those little bottles. Go to Sam's and get like real bottles, right? When you come up, take a look at this. This is like the texture of sand. The powder is powder. So I think this holds up better in baking in some of your recipes because it doesn't break down as fast.
Is it more flavorful or?
I think so. Maybe because it's a bigger piece than the powder. But feel free to come up and look at it, unscrew the top, you know, have a whiff. We're all friends here at this point, you know. The amount of garlic I got in these things, let me tell you, we're all going to be friends real quick. So, yeah, so get the granule and the Badia brand, B-A-D-I-A, I think I'm saying that right. It's usually in the Latin American section. You can usually find the granulated, and it's pretty inexpensive, that brand. Unlike Spice Islands or something like that, that's at those other stores, it can be kind of expensive. So, question? Yeah, I get these at Sam's. In fact, this is the B-A-D-I-A. If any of you are looking to buy quantity of stuff and you don't know this, CBI, Cheney Brothers, down by the airport, they do have an option where you can go in as public and buy. And they will break cases. So if you know you're going to have a big party and you need 20 racks of ribs, go down there and ask them what their pricing is. Or whatever it is you need. I could go down and easily buy a 50-pound bag of flour. That would be a lot cheaper than buying it in the store. So that's just another tip if you need that. Oh, the other thing I should mention about the recipe, thank you for reminding me. A lot of recipes will tell you 350, 375. This has got baking powder and baking soda in it, right? Now when I make my muffins, oh, we haven't done muffins yet. Wait till you see those. You need that big oven rise, that big pop. That equals a lot of heat. So these are baking at 450. I'm not doing them at the 350, 375, because we need that heat to activate the baking powder and baking soda. So I'm not telling you if you're following a tried and true recipe that you like and it says, oh yeah, cook at 350. Well, Spence told me to jack it up to the moon, and all of a sudden it comes out like charcoal. No, that's not good. So, you know, if you've got something existing like that, but these are pretty foolproof because it's a quick bread that doesn't bake very long. Now, if you're doing like banana bread, that's going to take a while. I would not jack that up to a higher temperature because the outside's going to be really dark or burned by the time the inside gets done, right? So stick with whatever you got there, but something like the biscuit or even a muffin. I bake my muffins, I believe, at 450 as well, and they take like a tablespoon of baking powder to get them going. But I'm also making the Texas size ones. Think Perkins. If you've ever had one of their muffins, that's the size that I make, of course. But when's that class? There you go. We'll have to do a quick bread class. There you go.
I'm Tina. This is a recipe that I learned from my Uncle Alan, who lives down in Mexico. This is not a Mexican dish, but it's I learned from him. He's one of the best cooks on the face of this earth. And I don't know why this combination works well together, but it does. It's so easy. It is a can of cream of tomato soup, a can of stewed tomatoes with Italian herbs in it, a can of chicken broth, and frozen spinach. That's it. Spinach. And you can put it in a crock pot, or you can just heat it up in a pan on the stove, or you could put it in the Instant Pot if you wanted to, I suppose. So my husband thinks he needs meat at every meal, which you don't, but he thinks he does. So sometimes we'll put either take frozen pre-made meatballs and chop them into quarters and put them in there, or just you can drop little pieces of Italian sausage in, just raw, put it right in the soup because the soup will cook it when you're cooking it. Or I had the idea while you were talking to put chorizo in it, which would be delicious. Maybe some red pepper flakes or something. That'd be really nice. Anyway, so that, and then the other thing is, a lot of times when I make this soup, I'll make cheese bombs. Like some people have, it's a comfort food for them, tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwich. So to make a cheese bomb, I just take Pillsbury Grands biscuits in a can, roll them out with a rolling pin, put a chunk of cheddar like the size of your finger in it, wrap it up and bake it in the oven. And then you have like a little cheese bomb you can dip in your soup. It's delicious.
Hi, I made this soup here this morning, and I did it with what I had. And so what I had was cranberries, and I had collard greens. So I put olive oil in the kettle, chopped up fresh ginger, chopped up whole purple onion, and then while it was cooking, then I added some of the collard greens, poured hot boiling water over it, add the rest of the collard greens, a little bit of agave, and tasting it now, I had to run out the door, but I would have added, if I'm doing it again, because I just made the whole thing up, some grated carrot, like about a cup of grated carrot, just to help sweeten it. So anyway, I read every one of the recipes in here has meat in it, so this doesn't. It's actually vegan. And there's no stock or anything. I put Mrs. Dash in it to make it simple to talk about.
I like chicken. I like Olive Garden's chicken gnocchi soup, and so I'm always looking for a recipe that comes close to it. And this one I found comes the closest. So it's not that hard to make. I kind of tweaked it myself, and I actually put more carrots in this because I had shredded more than the 1 cup, so I just put it in there. And it calls for a cup of chicken breast. I just used a rotisserie chicken and just cut it up, and I used white and dark meat. And I also like to have more chicken in it than it called for, so I just kind of tweaked it that way. And it said to use a 16-ounce package, of the ready-to-use gnocchi that you find in the refrigerated section. The first time I made it, I used that. And then this time, I actually had gnocchi that I just cooked and, takes 2 minutes, and then I put it in the soup when it was all done. So my husband likes soup that's thicker, so the first time I made it, he didn't think it was thick enough, so we just put a little slurry of cornstarch in it to thicken it some. But to me, it's fine. So, but it's easy to make, and this amount that you see here is one. I didn't triple, double anything. So it's the recipe just as it is, only with more chicken and stuff like that. But I froze the last batch because it was more than 3 people could eat. It says that, I didn't write it down, but it says it feeds 8 people. So I took it and froze half of it, and then just, put it in a pot on low and let it simmer for a while, and it was fine. So.
Good morning. Our recipes are on page 5, my mom and I. The bean soup, she made multiple batches of it. And today we also cut the smoked sausage smaller. Usually we just cut them in disc. Today we cut them in quarters so that everybody got some sausage. You can also use a spicy sausage. She does not like spicy, so it's a very tame dish. And we don't like bell pepper, so we don't put that in anything. For the canned baked beans, you can use either your leftover baked beans if you've had a barbecue or something like that, or you can use canned baked beans, and there's lots of varieties out there right now. Bush's has like 10 different ones with stuff in it. You can also do that, and it'll change the flavor of your soup. We made browned the sausage, the bacon, the onion, and the garlic in a pan, and then put it all in the crock pot and just kind of let it go all day. But it's addictive. Yes. And my mom's from the north. She says soups are only for winter also. I disagree. I'm a Florida girl. I like soup in the summer.
There you go.
So mine is the beefy taco soup. Ironically, I broke my crock pot yesterday. So mine is not in a crock pot. You can use I used ground beef. You can also use ground sausage if you like it as a spicier version. I also added to this is a triple batch. I also added onions and garlic because I like that. The stewed tomatoes, I think the consistency of the canned stewed tomatoes were too chunky for me, so I tried to break them up a little bit more, and I also put, one of the cans that I put in there was with chilies, just to give it a little more oomph. It's super simple. Throw it all in the crock pot. You can serve it with, I brought some crackers, some cheese, sour cream. I like Cholula if you want to make it a spicier version.